Failure's a part of growth. If you would have told me when I was hired in 2021, in 3 seasons you're going to be playing in the national championship game, I would have said, heck yeah, let's go. But then if you would have told me, hey, you're going to lose 9 games in the next 3 years, I would have said, oh no, hold on.
Head coach at Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman.
I'll never forget when he called me and said, hey, you can't tell anybody, but you're going to be our next head coach. You go from excitement that you're going to be the head coach at the University of Notre Dame to, oh shoot, it's real, let's go. Throughout the year, I would remind our guys that, hey, we're still the same team that lost to NIU. If we don't prepare the right way, then we won't deserve to have success on Saturday. You can lead by fear, or you can lead by trust. And I choose to lead out of trust. They know me beyond just being a coach. They know me beyond the game of football, so that we have a relationship where I'm gonna hold you accountable. I have to hold you accountable, but it's because I care about you. I've often tell our guys we have to trust beyond knowing. We gotta trust that our preparation is what we need to have success on Saturdays.
If you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice on day one of the job, what would it be? Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman is next up.
My issues, huh?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're good. I appreciate you being flexible. Yeah, nice to meet you. It was an easy day.
How's everything going? Good?
Good, man.
I haven't been here since I was here in 2012. Got recruited here.
Oh, yeah?
Took a visit here. Yeah, back in the day. But just for a game. Never really did a whole tour or stuff. But just, yeah, I was here a while ago. I'm trying to think where you would have been at the time, 2012. Where were you?
I was at Kent State.
Kent State.
And that was my second year at Kent State. And then went to Purdue after that for 4 years. Cincinnati for 4 years, and then here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It wasn't that long ago, right?
No, it doesn't seem that. Sometimes it seems like forever ago, but
Yeah.
then you think about it, it's like, no, it's not that long ago. And so you've been doing a great job with this stuff, man.
Thank you. I
That's
appreciate
awesome.
it, man. Thank you.
This is
Thank
awesome.
you. Coach, appreciate you doing this.
Yeah,
Thanks for
absolutely.
having us out. Sorry for our travel issues this morning, and appreciate you being flexible.
I get it.
It's tough to get a coach to sit down to do like a long interview and then to ask you to move the time is
Yeah.
even it's a bold move by us.
Fortunately, we're on spring break, so it wasn't like I had a whole bunch of meetings and stuff today, so it was pretty open.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been so cool to follow your career, and now since you've been the head coach at Notre Dame, congrats on an awesome season, making the national championship game. I want to go back to when you got the job in 2021, that viral video of you getting the players finding out that you're their new head coach. And what's going through your mind as you walk into the weight room and you know that for the first time you're going to address your players as their head coach?
It was actually right here in this locker room.
Oh yeah, that's right. Right here.
That 48 hours, really 72 hours of that week was a whirlwind of interviewing, talking on the phone, knowing that you're getting a job. Then about 5 minutes before I walked into this locker room, I had to meet with the support staff. And I'm like, these were just people you were peers with, and all of a sudden you're trying to address them as the head coach. And then they said, okay, all right, now we're going to the locker room, you're going to meet the team. And, I kind of walked up the steps in our locker room, and, your adrenaline's going. And I didn't think about what you're going to say and those things. It was just like, man, I can't wait to go and be around a group of individuals that I love and I trust. And I often say, like, I hope that video is a reflection of a coach that trusts this group of individuals, some offense, some defense, but also a group of players that, man, they're embracing trust. They're choosing to trust me as their head coach. And it was an awesome moment, one I wish I could bottle up and repeat, but it was just a special moment that you have in your life you'll never forget.
What's the process like of actually, you're on staff, you're the defensive coordinator, you're interviewing for the job, they're probably interviewing other candidates, but the school has to move fast. What's the process like of actually getting the job? How did you actually find out you got the job?
It was, again, a lot of phone calls, a lot of late night conversations with obviously our AD, but the head of the board of trustees, a lot of powerful people around here, our president. And, I did an in-person interview with our athletic director, Jack Swarbrick, who was our AD at the time. And I left his house not knowing if I had the job or not. And and I was also considering going to LSU to be the defensive coordinator. And so I'll never forget when he called me and said, "Hey, you can't tell anybody, but you're going to be our next head coach." And he's like, "There's a lot of things that have to happen these next 48 hours, but you're going to be the head coach." And I was sworn to secrecy. He allowed me to tell my wife.
I was going to ask, did you tell your wife?
I tell my wife, but not my parents, not my brother, not my kids. Just he said, "You could tell your wife." And it was now you go from excitement that you're going to be the head coach at the University of Notre Dame to, oh shoot, it's real. Let's go. What are we going to do? Staff, plan, and it just started going in motion, and it hasn't stopped.
What was your wife's reaction when you told her?
I think she was excited, but also nervous at the same time. Like, what did we just get ourselves into? And
life's going to change a lot, right?
Yeah, and it definitely has. There's no playbook for it. You can talk to as many current or past head coaches as you want, but there's things that you have to go through and experience yourself to learn what it means to be a head coach and what it takes to try to make this program successful. And it was already a successful program. Coach Kelly did a wonderful job of building this program to where it was. And so, but I had to put my own spin on it and enhance it in a way that was fitting for me. And so, again, it was a whirlwind of 72 hours, but one that I'm grateful for.
Yeah, well, we're sitting here now a few years into your tenure. If you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice on day one of the job, what would it be?
Time heals everything. You're going to have failure. Understand that. Failure is a part of growth. You know, I thought back, actually last week I was thinking about if you would have told me when I was hired in 2021, in 3 seasons you're going to be playing in a national championship game, I would have said, heck yeah, let's go. And but then if you would have told me, hey, you're going to lose 9 games in the next 3 years, I would have said, oh no, hold on. You know, and that's what I've learned is that you have to value delayed gratification. It takes time, and you're going to go through some ups and downs, and that's a part of growth. You have to go through downs to get to where you want to go. And the best advice I'll give myself is time heals everything, and value delayed gratification.
When you sat in that chair for the first, say, off season as you're building out your staff and you're dealing now with the portal and NIL and all that stuff going on, was there anything that surprised you about being a head coach? Like something that you didn't realize was going to be on your plate or didn't realize it was going to be like that till you actually sat down?
Yeah, I think, you know, as the defensive coordinator, obviously you had to make the schedule. But as the head coach, everybody's looking at you for direction. And you know, and you're talking about grown-ups and that, hey, what is the direction? Where are we going? What's the schedule for today? What's the schedule for this week? That's probably something that you don't anticipate taking as much time as it does. Like you have to be such a forward thinker. You got to make plans for months in advance. You got to make plans for a year in advance. I remember last year in the summer having to take 72 hours to prepare for, okay, if we make the college football playoffs, what's going to be our schedule from the last week 12 until the first round of the playoffs? And then those are the things you have to be forward thinking about. But every year in these 4 years, it's something has changed. Like when I first became head coach, there was no NIL. And then after that first year, there became this NIL and to where it is now and transfer portal and all these different things. You have to be adaptable. You have to adapt to the changes, but still have your core values.
I wanted to ask about your playing career because you have, and you mentioned it with your season so far here of like there's going to be adversity. And you had adversity in your playing career with having to retire earlier, probably sooner than you wanted to, due to the heart issue. You know, how did that adversity shape who you are now as a head coach?
Well, I think if we all think about over the course of our lives, maybe not when we're young because you have your parents there to help you through challenges, but as you think about when you're on your own, right, starting in college, adversity is a part of life, right? And being on your own and going through adversity teaches you how to be self-sufficient. And I think as I look back in my life, once you get into college, you know, learning how to expecting to walk into Ohio State at that time and being a starter versus having to sit out sit behind some great players as a freshman. And I got hurt as a sophomore and ended up having to medical redshirt my sophomore year. And all of a sudden you're the starter and you're fighting to be the starter going into your senior year. Like those are things that college teaches you, right? Adversity teaches you. And then, you get drafted to the NFL. Nobody gets drafted as early as they think unless you're the first pick. I often say the second pick thinks they can be the first pick, right? And so everybody has to wait. And so I was a 5th round draft pick, but when you receive that call, it's as much pain as it is to wait for that call. When you receive that call, it's a dream come true, and then you got to go to work. Then I was cut from the Chicago Bears after training camp, and that's another blow. And guess what? You figure life out, and you go, and I'm finished with the Texans. And, I'll never forget when Jim Tressel said, hey, play football as long as you can. At some point, the NFL will tell you no more. And that's when the Colts found the enlarged heart valve and said, hey, we're not going to sign you. Nobody else is. And as hard as that was to hear, you figure it out. You figure out what's the next step. But those were valuable lessons I learned in college, how to be self-sufficient, how to overcome adversity. And that's no different than when you become a head coach and you lose your first game. We're playing in the Fiesta Bowl versus Oklahoma State. And we're up 21 points in the first half, end up losing that game. And it's like, that's life. That is life. But that's why I think college is so important, because that's how you learn to become self-sufficient, because you don't have mom and dad there to help you anymore. You have coaches, but you have yourself to really figure out how to handle adversity.
Well, one of my favorite things with adversity is you, in the moment, like when you had to retire from the NFL, you probably felt like that was a really bad thing to happen to you. Like, how's this happen to me? I've had moments in my having to retire from football myself, but then 5 years later, 10 years later, you look back at it, it actually was a really good thing. Like, would you be the head coach in Notre Dame right now at how young you are if you would have played 10 more years in the NFL? Like, probably not. And,
exactly. Right.
And, so it's like, you don't actually know if something's good or bad until you see how it impacts the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I think you hit it. Perspective is everything, right? And you can feel sorry for yourself, which we all do at times. But if you have the perspective that sometimes those, we call them bloody wounds around here, sometimes those tough things that happen in your life end up making you better and putting you in a better situation, then you have the perspective of, we needed that to happen. That's the greatest thing that could have happened to me or this football team or this program for us to gain. Like, in order to grow, you have to struggle. That's what I always tell our guys. Like, you have to struggle. No different in the weight room. If you do what's easy, you're not getting bigger. So for us, in order to grow, you have to go through those struggles, and they stink during the moment. All struggles stink during the moment, but you appreciate them as you continue to move forward.
As you got into coaching, in what ways were you preparing to become a head coach during your assistant coaching career?
Well, I think it's you're a leader of men. You're, prepare to become a head coach, you got to be the best position coach you can be. Or to start for me, to be the best graduate assistant I can be, right? And I think people that sit there and daydream and write notes about what they're going to do when they're head coach are wasting the opportunity to truly prepare right there in the moment that you have. I often tell people, like, I didn't know that I was interviewing to be the head coach at Notre Dame the entire year I was a defense coordinator, but I was. You didn't think about it. I just wanted to be the best defense coordinator I could be at Notre Dame. Well, actually, you were interviewing, even though you didn't know it, to be the head coach. And that's what all young coaches and coaches period have to understand. Like, to get the next opportunity, you got to really take advantage of the opportunity you have right in front of you. And that's what prepared me to be the head coach, is coaching one position as a graduate assistant at Ohio State, coaching the linebackers at Kent State, coaching the linebackers at Purdue, like being the best coach in my position and leader of men really gave me an opportunity to be prepared for this.
Well, one of the biggest jobs you have now as a head coach is hiring a staff and constantly having to find young, new coaches. What are the things that you look for in a young coach when you're saying that this is, maybe you meet him at the convention, maybe you see him at another staff, maybe it's a GA on your staff that says, okay, this guy could be a position coach for us?
I think I look for three things. One, are you competent? Can you really do the job you're required to do? Have you shown to be competent? Have you shown to be able to produce at that position that we're looking to hire you to? But is your character? Are you a good person? Do you choose hard? Do you do the right things when nobody's looking? Like that, I think that's important. And three, like, how well do you teach? How well? It's one thing to know it and be competent, but it's another to teach it and to get players to believe this is the way we're going to do it, this is why we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think that's so important. And I would say to be a great recruiter, but to me, if you have character, you're competent, and you're a great teacher, you understand. You're probably going to be a really good recruiter because you understand that's important.
Yeah, yeah. You, I got it. We were talking before we got started. I got to imagine you still have the itch a little bit to be a position coach, to get in there and do some linebacker drills and things like that.
Well, I mean, what you love about coaching is really impacting young people, right? And teaching them something that's going to help them have success. Well, as a position coach, you do that every week. We're going to install a game plan. We're going to teach you, and then you're going to have success on Saturday. Well, a lot of times for me as a head coach, wins are great, but you don't see the results of the time you put in with young people until they're gone, right? Until their fathers, their husbands, they're successful in life. And so I miss that. I kind of pour into the punt unit at times. Like that's kind of become my position group. Obviously, your coaching staff is your position group, but I miss coaching that one position every day, meeting with them, and then going to see the results that day of practice and in the weekend of the game.
I bet everyone takes the special teams meetings a little more seriously when the head coach is running the meetings. Huh?
There's a buy-in. What I love about special teams is that's a team component. I'm such a team person, and we don't have success unless everybody sacrifices for the team. And I love special teams because it's a reflection of your culture. Right, and that I don't care if you're an offensive, defensive player, like we all are going to sacrifice for special teams and the battlefield position and those things. And so there's an extreme importance in special teams in our program.
Yeah. The story of last year's season and the loss to NIU has been, I feel like, beat over the head by the media a million times, right? But I do think it is. We're talking about the adversity piece, and we're talking about like it is a part of the story of last season, and it's really interesting, like how you beat Texas A&M, and then you have that people call it like a trap game against NIU, and for a week probably feels like the world's falling apart, right? Everyone's talking about the program, but you found a way to get 18 to 22-year-olds to still buy in and show up and believe that they could play in the national championship game. And I think there's very few head coaches that could have done that. I think it was probably one of the better jobs we've seen of overcoming adversity in a season. I guess talk me through what your plan was after that game. Like, what did you say to the guys? How did you get them to still believe that everything's still in front of us?
Yeah. That loss, I always say, is bigger than what we thought, right? And it taught me and our program so many lessons. As you said, we were on the top of the college football world week one with a huge win over A&M, College Game Day, and everybody was telling us, you guys are locked for the playoffs. Just you got an easy schedule, and then we're the laughing stock of college football after week two. And for me, in my short career as a head coach, that was the first time we won that big game early. We won 9 games my first year, 10 games our second year, but we lost to Ohio State that big game early. And this year was different. We won that big one, and after deep thought, more than schematically and the tactical aspect of winning a game of football, we had to learn how to handle success. I knew there was a lesson, right? And I'm a faithful person, and I'm like, what is the lesson I got to learn other than the tactical things? And I was like, okay, we have to learn how to handle success. And so we often talked throughout the year about keeping the pain. And, as I said earlier, that strength you gain from, the tough times, it's similar to keeping the pain. Like the fear you have of what happened in the past happening again continues to help you prepare in the right way. And so at times throughout the year, I would remind our guys that, hey, we're still the same team that lost to NIU. If we don't prepare the right way, physically and mentally, right, then we won't deserve to have success on Saturdays. And so I think that's a lesson that's going to stick with me for the rest of my career, is that there is a mental and physical approach you have to every game. And I can watch the way we practice and say, okay, physically we're practicing well. But mentally, we each got to make a decision, starting with the head coach, that we are respecting our opponent in the way this game of football deserves to be respected, or you're going to get humbled. And that's just it was the greatest thing that could have happened to this team, but one I don't want to repeat.
I'm sure. Was there a moment after that game, maybe a few weeks later, where you feel like there was a turning point, or where you kind of said to yourself, like, okay, like that happened, but we have a pretty darn good team right here, and you kind of were like, okay, our guys are battling back right now.
Well, I think for the few weeks after that, we didn't know, like we weren't thinking about the playoffs. We were like, hold on, we're 1-1.
Yeah.
We just
Win
lost
some games.
NIU. You know, like how do we right this ship? And you know, I've often tell our guys we have to trust beyond knowing. I tell them every Saturday. I said, hey, we got to trust that our preparation is what we need to have success on Saturdays beyond knowing before the game. And that was a lesson that we learned. But I think as I think we played Purdue, Miami, Ohio, and then maybe one other team before we played Louisville. Louisville was a top 25 team when we played them. They're also the team that beat us the year before. And when we beat Louisville, I think our guys were able to say, okay, we're a good football team. We're the team that beat A&M. Like we're a good football team. And then, you know, we started saying, hey, every game's a playoff game, right? If we want to reach these goals that we have in terms of making the playoffs, like every game we know is a playoff game. And so we had to prepare the right way. And then I think the belief kind of added on as you continued to have those big wins throughout the season.
Yeah. And I was talking to a couple other head coaches, and a couple guys had mentioned to me that like the growth in your early years as a head coach, like you learn so much each year, and you like the difference in year 3 versus year 1 is just massive. And what's the biggest way you feel like you've changed as a head coach from year 1 to now?
Again, I think I started off by saying just understanding that, you know, focus on the things that matter, right? Is that losses, and I'm not talking about the losses of a game. I'm talking about losses, staff changes. I'm talking about something happens in practice, like, hey, how do we improve? Like those are things that happen throughout a career. But I think the reality is that, you know, if you can understand like the past experience are your new foundation for your future, I think that gives you a chance to truly improve. What we did we can't start back over. Our process starts over, but where we are as a program can't start back over. We have to use the experience of the 24 season to say, this is the foundation, this is the floor for where we are going to begin to hopefully reach the goals we have in the future.
You seem to be, and from players I talk to, like such a great players coach. Players want to play for you. We talked about that video when the players found out that you were named the head coach. You know, you're a great communicator. You clearly have really good relationships with the players. I think one of the challenges when it comes to having great relationships and being a young coach is how do you have good relationships but also demand respect, and they know that, you know, there's no cutting corners in this program. Like we're tight, we're boys, but you're not my buddy. You know, like how do you balance that even as a young coach, but now as an assistant, but now as a head coach too of that, because you got to kind of play the middle, right? The respect, but also have great relationships with all your guys.
You know, I think there's two different thought process, right? You can lead by fear, right? Where maybe these guys that you're leading don't know you and they fear you. And they're going to do what you say based out of fear, or you can lead by trust. And I choose to lead out of trust. Means that I have to be intentional, but spending time with our players that they know me beyond just being coach. They know me beyond the game of football, so that we have a relationship where I'm going to hold you accountable. I have to hold you accountable. But it's because I care about you, because I want to see you have success. These things are non-negotiable. And when you're not performing to the standard, we got to hold you accountable. And so, but it takes intentional actions to build that trust that I'm talking about, to lead from trust. And so it's no different than being a parent, right? You spend so much time with your children that at times you got to hold them accountable, right? It's helping them grow, holding discipline and all those different things. But it doesn't mean that you don't care about them, you don't love them. And it's the same way to me with our players. Like, we're going to spend time together. Not all the time are we going to have to hold you accountable and be hard on you, but you know, at times we're going to have to hold you accountable and we're going to have to discipline you. But it's because we love you and we want to see you have success. But in order to lead that way, you have to be intentional about building trust with your players.
Well, you mentioned being a parent. Your son Vinny's a great wrestler. Is it cool sometimes to step away from being coach and just going to be dad for a little bit and not having to do some of the football stuff?
When he was younger, I was able to try to like help him, like coach him, and I wrestled for a little bit when I was younger, and try to teach him things. But you know, I was an awful wrestling coach. I would say, get up, Shoot, get off your back. Like, those are things now he would say, duh,
Yeah,
Dad, I don't want to be on my back. I don't want to be,
Yeah.
losing this match. But, he's to a point now where he's way more intelligent than me in the sport of wrestling. So I get to encourage him, right? And I get to just, probably help him more than anything from the mental aspect. He was in the state championships here in Indiana a couple weeks ago, and he lost in the semifinals. And the greatest thing about it was in an hour, he had to wrestle for third.
Yeah.
And you don't have time to dwell on what just happened. You have to get refocused for this next opportunity. And so that's all I remind him. Hey, man, let it go. We'll figure out why you lost later. You'll get with your coaches, figure out right now, you got to get your mind in a place that you're ready to attack this next match that you have coming up. And so I like to support him in that way. I like to be his dad when we're going through this college experience.
Yeah.
It's unique for me being on the other side, listening to some other coaches just try to, sell my son on why he should choose their school. And I don't try to interject too much. If they ask me a question, I'll say a couple things, but I do listen. And at the end of the day, I want for my son the same thing I want for these guys to, right, be developed, play against the best of the best, wrestle against the best of the best, but also get an education that's going to help them way beyond the sport of wrestling.
Yeah. Being the head coach at Notre Dame is it's an exclusive group, obviously. This is a unique place, probably different than any other place in college football, right? For a lot of different reasons. How have you balanced the tradition and the history here, and how there's probably a certain way things have been done here for a long time, but also like this is Marcus Freeman's program. You got to do it the way you want to do it. And you mentioned even in the interview process, I'm sure there's tons of people that you're calling that have input on the program, and so it's just so much tradition and history here. Now, how have you balanced that and kind of putting your own stamp on it as well?
Well, I think you have to embrace why this program is in the position that it's in. And a lot of those things go back way before me, right? And that the tradition, those that have come before me, the coaches, the players that have their blood, sweat, and tears have built this program to where it is. And we embrace those traditions. We embrace the distinctions that we have at Notre Dame that makes it unique, but also, challenge everything. That's something we talk about all the time. Challenge everything. Is there a better way to do a certain thing? Hey, our guys want to wear the green uniform. Hey, listen, is the green uniform going to be the reason why you win or lose a game? No, right? And at the end of the day, like, you want to empower your players, your leaders to have some input too. And so you have to be adaptable to the current times, right? And that's important, that your players know you care about them. And part of that is being adaptable and knowing where the current landscape is in college football. But we have some distinctions. We have some history about this place that we have to truly embrace, because that's what makes Notre Dame football special. Yeah.
I was thinking on the flight here this morning, some of the things I wanted to ask you, and I thought of this one, and it's unique, but I'm curious to hear your answer. You've clearly made a lot of great decisions in your life to get to this point. You make decisions every day as a head coach. If you had to pick one decision as the best decision in your life, what would it be?
No, who I chose to marry. That's easy, and I often say there's three major decisions in your life that you get to be selfish. I say where you go to college, right? Because that's going to impact a big part of the rest of your life. Who you choose to marry, you should be selfish about that. And then what faith you choose to believe in. And I said, all three of those things, once you make a selfish decision to have success, you got to be unselfish. You got to be unselfish to be, have success in college. You have to be unselfish to have a successful marriage. You have to be unselfish when you talk about, growing in your faith. And so, but by far the greatest decision that I've made was to choose to marry my wife, and who does an unbelievable job of helping me be the best head coach I can be by being the greatest wife and mother she can be.
That's awesome. Is she involved in a lot of the decisions you're making, like in the program? Like, I'm sure she's hearing it from you about everything, right?
She don't have many football decisions. She doesn't have input on football decisions, but our wives, the spouses of our coaching staff is so important that they have a support system.
That's cool.
She spends a lot of time, supporting the wives and doing things with the wives, and she got to take care of 6 kids and and do the certain things that she likes to do, but she has a lot of input on things outside of the actual X's and O's because I love her input. I value the input of others, and at the end of the day, I have to make the decisions that are best for this program. But she definitely has some input.
Yeah. What are the things that give you the most energy as a head coach? What are the things that you like doing the most that kind of give you the feeling like give you the most life every day?
Selfishly, personally, I like to work out.
Yeah.
It's a way to challenge yourself in the mornings, and to, you got to be self-motivated, because nobody's really checking to see are you pushing yourself. And but sometimes you got to push weight or push yourself. When you're running or something that challenges you to go beyond your mental breaking point. And those are things selfishly that I like to do to challenge myself, and it kind of reminds me at times, like, okay, you push your players outside their comfort zone. Here's an opportunity to challenge yourself, to push yourself outside your comfort zone. I don't always do it.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes I'll go, all right, I'll do 8 instead of 10 reps. But that's something for me selfishly. But the other thing is again, is challenging our players to be the best version of themselves, right? Is that I try to be intentional with pushing our program as a whole, but individuals every day, to get them outside their comfort zone to really be the best version of themselves.
What's the daily routine? Are you a 5 a.m., 4 a.m. guy?
Yeah, I'm in an early morning.
4?
No,
5?
No. Yeah, about 5. During the season, you got to get up and get your workout out of the way. And so every morning I get up, come in and work out, and get back to my office. I get a little bit of quiet time depending on what I have going on that day. And then you go and attack the day. Every day is different, right? Like, you have more of a routine during the season, right? What cut-ups you're going to watch, how you're going to prepare. You got practice and, post-practice and all those things. But, out of the season, every day is different, right? And so it's the ability to put on those different hats that you have to solve this certain issue. And that's probably the thing I've learned more about leadership than anything, is that it's all encompassing. And the hats you have to wear are different every day, but it's important that you wear the hat that is needed at that necessary time.
In the NIL era right now in college football, you mentioned that there wasn't even NIL when you took over this job. How have you used NIL to your advantage when it comes to recruiting, adapting to it? And how has it kind of changed how you've constructed your roster now in this, going into 2025 season? There's so many moving parts. You got the portal versus high school recruiting. What's been your strategy with it?
Well, we've always said we're going to major in high school recruiting. The greatest strength that we have here is a love for this university. And in order to do that, you have to, a lot of times, pick this place out of high school and really grow with this university. And so we're always going to major in high school recruiting. That's going to be the foundation of our program. The reality is players will be getting paid, right? And they should. And what I don't want to see is players make decisions based off how much money they're going to get. But if you focus on being a great player, you should be paid according to your value. And I think that's important. But I try to separate that with everyday culture of our program. Like, your agent or you guys are going to have those conversations, and you're going to get paid accordingly to your works. But at the end of the day, we need you to commit to be the best version of yourself, be the best teammate that you can be, and that's where your focus should be. Let's handle those financial conversations at a certain point, and let's move forward, right? And let's really focus on becoming a great player, which is going to help us become a great team.
The last few things I got for you, Coach. I appreciate all your time. If Notre Dame's going to win a national championship, what are the 1 or 2 things that you feel like still need to happen? What are the things that you're kind of looking at and saying, this is the list that has to get done if we're going to do that?
Well, I think this year we showed that we can be as good as any program in the country. And I go back and I watch the Ohio State game, and how can we improve schematically? What mistakes did we make in that game? And those are the things that you can control. And the other thing is, you always want to increase the talent, right? And that's the most important aspect of any great organization, is talent, right? And so we have to continue to increase, the best players in the country that fit this place, right? And value the things that we value here. But then you got to continue to develop them. How do we develop you as an individual? That's so important mentally and physically. And then and what type of culture do we have? How do we continue to attract team first guys when the world is me first, right? And that's the part of NIL. That you get to be a me first guy there, but once that's taken care of, you have to be a team first individual, and your culture has to promote that. And that's to me the three areas that we got to continue to focus on is enhancing talent, enhancing development, enhancing culture.
Yeah. Two more things for you. What's the best advice you've ever received in your life?
Probably what Coach Tress would tell me: be where your feet are. You know, it probably meant something different when he told me that as I was getting ready to leave Ohio State to go to Kent State than it does right now. And to me, I use that to remember, like, focus on what's right in front of you. Don't waste time daydreaming about an uncertain future or things that don't matter. Right? Use your energy on the things that matter and that you're going to help this program. You know, choose to love your wife every day. Choose to love your kids. That's important because those, knock on wood, those will be there forever, you know. But, you know, keep the main thing the main thing. That's what's important.
Yeah. Last thing, Coach, what's your why? What's the reason you do what you do every day?
Well, I'm going to take my wife and kids out of it. It's the players.
Easy answer,
it's the players. Like, there's nothing more satisfying to me than to see young people overcome obstacles and have successful lives. And I often tell our players, it's not, I don't mean just the NFL, right? 3-4% will make the NFL. But what I love about this university is that it offers, if you're good enough to go to the NFL, it offers you a chance to develop and be drafted and play a long NFL career. But also it gives you opportunity to have success in life. It gives you opportunity to grow spiritually, to grow as a person. It's the total college experience. I say that often, and that's important. This isn't a transactional, come to Notre Dame to play football for money. This is, hey, come to Notre Dame because you want to be developed as a football player, as a person, as a student. And that's my why, is to see young people grow holistically, to be self-sufficient individuals. And they're better because of the time they spent here in this football program and at this university.
I love it. Coach, appreciate your time. Excited to follow your journey as you win a national championship.
I appreciate it, Adam.
Thanks, Coach.
It's been an honor.
Appreciate it.
Next up.